Hello, everybody. Looks like we are coming online. Thanks for everybody who's rolling in just now. I will take some time at the beginning of the stream to go over some non-directly related to the title of the stream stuff, just to reward the people who pop in right at the beginning for coming in fashionably early, or on time rather. I guess didn't exactly start this early. Yeah, so one of the things I've been doing in this stream is kind of giving a commentary about YouTube or streaming itself. So a meta commentary, streaming about streaming, very meta. One of my motivations for making this stream was the internet has changed, so it's clear to see how social media has taken off, the way people meet new people or don't meet new people on the internet. All of this has been changing rapidly over the past couple of decades, depends how old you've been alive. One of the things that was brought up to me was back in the day, people would have their own personal websites or blogs. And the way that they would discover new content is people would link each other. So you might have somebody, let's say they're a hobbyist of some kind. They program computers. Then on their own personal website, they might have links to 10 other people that they think are interesting. Maybe they're not all programmers either. Maybe this one person maintains, the person knows someone who grows plants and does gardening really well. So they'll link that person's site that has all this useful information. Then another person is an artist that they have hired a couple times, is happy with the result for their rock band. And then there's a whole bunch of other just technical blogs of people who share and do the same sort of thing. So back in the day, the natural mechanism, probably the only way really to do this aside from just person to person, face to face communication, was just straight up sharing links to people on their websites. So it's kind of funny, we're seeing this sort of thing coming back in a way where you could even look at different social media accounts and see the sort of people that are connected to each other, who talks to who talks about who, and so on and so forth. And what's cool is, like in the past with blogs, we still have a lot of this was very open, so you wouldn't even have to be logged on to see like blogs or homepages of olden days. You would just go to people's websites and you could look at stuff. Similarly here, right, this is a public channel, so anybody could watch this if they were interested, if they wanted to. And one thing I could do to sort of do the same pattern that people used to do on the internet that I thought was pretty cool is to also just share links. So say, like, Alan talks about a lot of stuff. Where does he get a lot of his ideas, or where does he find threads of stuff to go down? So one place that I would do that is YouTube. And I think a useful thing I could do on this stream is to link and also briefly just talk about other channels that I have found useful. A lot of very different channels. Oh, and if you want to write this stuff on your resume, you're doing some resume-driven development. Let's just say you're trying to apply, get a job with the feds or something. You could say that you're doing open source intelligence. So let's unpack a definition here. What is open source intelligence, or OSINT? Wow, that sounds pretty fancy. What is OSINT? Open source intelligence is a multi-factor, so they use these words qualitative and quantitative, which we had talked about previously on this stream. Let me just check. Am I connected? Oh, yeah, it does look like I'm connected. All right. OSINT, so qualitative, quantitative methodology for collecting, analyzing, and making decisions about data accessible in publicly available sources. So that's why you could say it's open source, because you aren't, breaking into places you're not supposed to be or anything like that. It's just like you go out and you look at places you're already allowed to look, and there are even methods of discovery for finding. For example, a YouTube video, links to other YouTube video, and so on, to be used in an intelligence context. Okay. And they define intelligence as to do, like, finding out stuff for making decisions, basically. So very, very general, broad definition. In the intelligence community, the term open refers to overt, publicly available sources as opposed to covert or clandestine sources. OSINT, under one name or another, has been around for hundreds of years. With the advent of instant communications and rapid information transfer, a great deal of actionable and predictable intelligence can now be obtained from public, unclassified sources. Alright, and then they just say it's not related to these other terms that might sound similar. Yeah, so I would say that on the stream, we are doing some sort of open source intelligence, OSINT, and that, I just have this private internet window open, so I'm not using logins or anything fancy, and we're just looking on stuff that's already out there, freely available. So I wanted to I'll just list these 3 channels today to share. And I could tell you about why I think that they're all very different but quite interesting. So this guy here, Coffeezilla, you could say he's a pretty for a one man show, basically. I mean, he does interviews and stuff, but mainly he's the host of his show. He covers extensively this topic of, we'll read his description. He says, I uncover scams, fraudsters, and fake gurus that are preying on desperate people with deceptive advertising. So, especially when learning about crypto stuff and seeing what's going on, with a lot of crypto kind of hustle culture related things, I've found this guy's channel to be both very entertaining and highly informative. This video right here that's highlighted on this channel, exposing Tether, Bitcoin's biggest secret. If you're interested in Tether or cryptocurrency at all, I recommend checking out this. I could just say, like, with my own money, after watching a bunch of his stuff, I was much more heavily invested in crypto. I actually pulled out a lot of money from crypto and put it in other places after studying some of his videos, because the crypto space is full of a lot of shady, anonymous people pumping and dumping and other things. Anyways, this video, it's like PG, kid-friendly, but also very entertaining and informative. And I think that, especially for audience members that are maybe younger out there, haven't invested or shuffled around a lot of money before, it could be a very good channel to check out to sort of know what traps and things to look out for. So I recommend that channel. Another channel, so this Company Man channel. Now, this channel is very useful for learning about stuff that is already all around you. So Company Man, this channel, he covers a lot of just openly available history of very big companies. But oftentimes when you look at like a big company, like we'll just use like Costco or something as an example, you only know what Costco is saying right up front. You could read their current announcements. But it would take some experience, either knowing people who have been going to Costco for many years, or like reading into their history and their sites, to understand, why is Costco the way it is today? How has Costco changed over time? Was Costco always like a kind of everything warehouse store like they are today? Or maybe they focused on food and restaurant supplying, and then they brought in to sell like jeans and t-shirts to Asian Americans. How is it that Costco has evolved their practices? So for understanding, especially if you live like in the suburbs or a big city where all of these sorts of businesses and products are around you and they're very familiar to you, I found that this channel's relatively short videos are usually between 10 and 20 minutes. They could give you a very good overview about what exactly these companies that all of us have to interface with sometimes, what are these companies and how did they become what they are. So another recommended channel. And I would say that this channel is like a very mainstream normal channel. So sometimes I might get caught saying something like, oh, well, merger this or that. Like I might, in a conversation, drop such a piece of information, and then people might say, oh, onto your conspiracy stuff again. It's like, dude, this isn't conspiracy stuff. This is literally documented official corporate history. So a channel like Company Man, I think, is good, where you hear some phrase like, for instance, Disney owns like everything, all the media, all the entertainment. Well, you could of course go and research that yourself. That might be the way to actually know what's going on the best. But alternatively, if you go through one of these videos for less than 20 minutes, then you could get a good handle as a starting point to do further research if you choose on who exactly is Disney Corporation and who do they own, right? And this is all publicly available, right? Doing open source intelligence, and you could find out and verify these things for yourself without like, oh, do you learn about all this stuff from like crazy people websites? It's like, no, this is a very mainstream large channel on YouTube that just goes over publicly available information. So that's that. And then the final channel I wanted to feature that I enjoy a lot is this fellow, Uneducated Economist. So he does this kind of setup that I like, which is, you'll see most of his videos is just him sitting in a car saying what he's thinking about, mostly related to economic type issues, but he'll talk about other stuff that's just related to his life, kind of like a blogger. So to me, a channel like his has become pretty successful, and it's cool to me to see that he does this low budget approach. He has very high viewer engagement, and I think that he offers very useful information. His job, he's like a retail lumber guy, so selling wood and stuff. But in doing his job, one thing he does is he is able to talk and ask a lot of people that he does business with what they're seeing on the ground. So a bunch of his recent videos, I think, have to do with like digital bank, the supply chain stuff, lumber prices, shipping containers, stuff like that. Because, of course, people buy and sell lumber and other products, commodities, they'll ship them. So rather than getting the official from the top reports, then a guy like this is a very useful news source, because he goes just from the ground and he reports on what he sees and hears. And then also too, he'll give his analysis, and he'll take like reader recommendations. He was reading like some old economics essay from hundreds of years ago that a viewer sent in. So he was like reading this article and analyzing what was going on related to that article. So I look at a channel like this, and it succeeds in many ways that I think is cool. So that's why, for example, I've started to go ahead and look over and read this a technological society book, because I saw how somebody else successfully like took and read an essay or something and uses their knowledge and their experience to explain it, and then how that made very interesting video content but also super low budget. I mean, I think this guy literally on his like lunch breaks or before going to work, most of his videos are just him in his car with his phone. So that's cool. And then the last thing I want to do is do a little self promo too. So of course, like everyone comes from somewhere, including me. Like what might I have a little bit more insight into relative to people like Coffeezilla or Uneducated Economist, Company Man? What might I know a little bit more about? One area I would say that I have more experience than most people in is academics and then linguistic stuff. So I also try to create useful material for people that might want to do some open source intelligence, whatever you might call it, to learn about things. So, for example, I studied Japanese for a number of years, and I have this language and linguistics website. So I have pages on a bunch of languages, but I'll just use Japanese here as an example. Oh, we have some new people joining in. Hi, King Herring, and hi, Reaper. Okay, yeah, so going back to sort of how am I contributing to open source intelligence? So, for example, someone's like, I want to learn Japanese. Like, anime is awesome. What do I do? Well, I would say if you're actually serious about just learning enough Japanese to start getting rolling and be able to speak and use, read, and understand Japanese, then I would just have like a quite short page that would tell you how to do it. So I said, learn to read and write kana. So this is the aspect of the writing system. Pronunciation, learn to distinguish long and short vowels. With memorizing words, pay attention to that. That's something English speakers will often mess up on. And then memorize essential phrases for communication. And then another recommendation that I have with the writing systems. Oh, maybe I should update this page. Oh, is to have a pop-up dictionary of some sort. So what's cool about video is I could show you guys this stuff up front. So this pop-up dictionary, like here's an article about an anime. So Japanese characters, hard to read. With like a pop-up dictionary, if you know the basics of the grammar, you just mouse over and then you could know, if you know how to read the kana, then you could read the words. So, you know, you could basically read and then you get stuck, you don't know how to say something, then you're able to just use that dictionary, not open any new windows and stuff, and that could help you read. So, like, I'm not Japanese born, I wouldn't even say I'm fluent or something, but if somebody sent me like a Japanese source using just a couple technologies and having knowledge of the grammar and some vocabulary and stuff, then you would be able to go through and do open source intelligence in a non-Latin language. How cool is that? Couple comments. King Herring is saying, casting some doubt on Coffeezilla and if he does his own research. Yeah, I would say like you watch YouTube and then people, especially larger channels, you'll have people start to say stuff like, oh yeah, you know, something, my writer. Like people will have scripts that they read for their videos, especially people that have these higher production value videos where, you know, they cut music and scenes and stuff nicely. It's not a spontaneous broadcast like this sort of thing. They'll have some editorial control to try to make a more polished video. So King Herring, a specific critique of Coffeezilla. He should make a retraction video since the new LA Times article on Pena came out, but he won't because Coffeezilla makes money on him, and also Pena happened to have two big YouTube influencer people. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into the weeds and look at the specifics of Coffeezilla, but I think King Herring here is bringing up a valid point, which is to say, you know, you have these YouTubers and stuff that have their inner YouTuber drama. One big question is who do you trust? Why would you follow some guy over another guy. Dion brought up this other guy's channel who had some drama with Coffeezilla, tech lead. So this guy has been kind of a living meme, and that he will have like a deadpan flat expression, and then he'll basically copy the methodologies of lots of scammers and stuff that he clearly understands the mechanics of how they work and what he's doing. And this guy knows how to game the YouTube algorithms and stuff well. He'll optimize his videos with catchy titles and all sorts of stuff. Let's see. Okay, anyways, that's enough of sort of meta commentary about the YouTube world and some other channels. And thanks everyone for their feedback. Of course, that's appreciated here. And I think this is also one way in which this platform could be useful. So like I said, oh, here are 3 channels that I think are pretty cool. Then we share and say like, oh yeah, well, maybe you discovered this channel just because YouTube algorithm recommended this channel to you. But did you know this and that about this channel? And that sort of information, how would you get that information otherwise? So like personally, I still stand by what I said about how I believe that the Coffeezilla channel has a lot of useful information. But does that mean that Coffeezilla or whatever YouTuber doesn't have like financial ties or deals or drama with other people? Like, yeah, that's not saying that that stuff isn't true. If it's open and it's out there, then that's also true. But as of now, you know, I'm not monetized, so I'm a free and independent agent. So welcome to the True Open Source Intelligence Club. Together, let us uncover what's going on in the world today with the emphasis on the internet. Okay, so I'll just flip back to the text. I'm not just going to start reading. We're going to talk about some of these things and show some stuff, but just to say we got to the text, let's get to the text. So, all right, this is where I left off. Jacques Ellul is talking about magic technology and how a lot of the times how we use technology is like magic. So where I left off last stream was talking about how when you have someone, they're typing something into a console, it's kind of like a wizard issuing a command, and then it enacts a change in the real world. And insofar as you bring together the real world and the metaverse, whatever you want to call it, as you blend the real and the virtual, then the program becomes much more powerful. So a lot of people, for instance, typing Japanese, they got scared of this deep fake technology because somebody could run a computer program, and then maybe using that computer program, they could simulate, like they could make a politician say something that the politician didn't actually say. They could even invent politicians and people that don't even exist. They could say someone who is supposedly dead is actually still alive, just reconstructing that person based on video and stuff like that. So this deepfake technology would be an example of how all this metaverse reality programs being like magic is getting closer and closer together. Like, I assume nobody here, well, I'm not going to assume that nobody here has ever seen like President Biden, for instance. Maybe you have. But I'm going to assume like nobody here is an actual like White House staffer that sees him frequently. The point of that being, you have these people in places of authority, and the primary way in which you know about them, what they're saying, and so on and so forth, is that it's all mediated through digital media. So whether it's you're watching them give an address live from whitehouse.gov or from, you know, a YouTube broadcast, whatever it is, the way in which most people interact with the political system is digital in some form or another. Your bank account, digital, and then you're going to pay taxes, probably digital. So that is a vehicle by which you could do magic stuff. Like, how do you, the alchemist dreamed of producing gold from nothing. Well, you can't actually produce physical gold, but you could produce like dollars in your bank account through doing stuff with like crypto and stocks and other stuff. So is that kind of an alchemy in a way? All right, couple comments. King Herring says, I wonder what Alan's opinion is on post-truth. Dion's asking about the New York Times article. And I'm not familiar with this name, Pena, and what this Dan Pena stuff is specifically about. So maybe in the comments someone could summarize what's going on there. I'll just say up front, like, I'm not in the post-truth, everything is relative crowd. I consider myself a Christian. I'm currently intending to become an Eastern Orthodox Christian. So that's my own background and what I'm doing. However, I think that, to talk about how people use deception and all this sort of stuff, I mean, it's just a fact. Like, you look at what people do, like, oh, shocker, there's deception and people lie. It is true. Now, is that to say that I don't think that there is any truth out there? No, I think that there is a base reality. I assume other people exist. All these things, I assume that they're true. And my experience confirms and tells me that that this is true. But also I would say that, people do lie and do all that sort of stuff. So let us be the better example. Let us be the people that don't give into lying and deception and stuff. But instead, we could understand what's going on and we could share with one another about how stuff works. And then we don't have to perpetuate or build the world that does these practices that we don't think are good. So I'm saying, don't make your own scam cryptocurrency and pump and dump it. Don't do that. It's possible you might make a lot of money, but it's probably not good for you. Instead, maybe you have a friend who's starting a company. Maybe your friend's a poor YouTube streamer who's asking for some support. Not me. I'm not even monetized at this point. But if you invest and you try to put funds in something like that, as opposed to pump and dump, rich scheme, then maybe you, with the autonomy that you have, you could make stuff better. So that's my view on those things. Let us continue. So back to Jacques Ellul. He says, plainly, we have had two streams of technique from the very beginning. How does it happen that we never take cognizance of the second? There are a number of reasons. We leave aside the causes that form from modern psychology because we are obsessed with materialism and do not take magic seriously. Okay. It has little interest for us, and we are unaware even today as we study technique that relates to men, that we are drawing on the great stream of magical techniques. So, did you know that you're a wizard, Harry? Did you know that you're a wizard? Related to this, I would say I've met a number of people who have claimed to be interested in magic in some capacity, and oftentimes when people say that, they kind of give like a little blurb about how, okay, magic isn't what you think it is. Like, I'm going to make a fireball in my hand. They'll kind of have like a little philosophical spiel about what exactly it means by magic. So it'll be something like what Jacques Ellul here is talking about with technique, about how he's saying you do a sort of fixed sequence of actions to call upon some thing, whether it's a computer system or something else that's outside of you, and thereby through doing that you could affect some change on the world. So somebody might consider that the magic that they do. This relates back to a lot of this hustle culture stuff we were talking about. Like there's this famous book series company thing called The Secret. Okay, it's classified as like a self-help book. But among other techniques, it talks about like, you want $1 million. Well, you think about $1 million every day. You have some routine, some ritual, something you do, and then eventually the universe kind of aligns and gives you $1 million, something like that. So there's a lot of this sort of content out there. All right, we have a couple more comments here. King Harry says, YouTube sucks at promoting streams. Seems only possible to get lots of subs from normal videos. Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I think every single view I've gotten has been through 1 to 3 layers of direct promotion, meaning I actually sent someone the link and then a friend sent a friend the link, that sort of thing. When I go on YouTube, I don't see other people's streams promoted. So I think that's true. King Herring says the universe is mental, not physical. Yeah, this is a whole another series of topics you could talk about. For example, by mental, would that mean like what people in the past have described as spiritual? Like, what do you mean by mental? Are we all? Does that mean that like we all live in the Matrix? What do you mean? Like Elon Musk? How do we know we're not living in a simulation? If you run the numbers, the probability that we're living in a simulation is greater than the probability that we're not. Therefore, we could assume that we're living in a giant video game. Like, these sorts of arguments or ways of describing the world. We could talk more about these if y'all are interested. Okay, continuing, Jacques. But this neglect is due as well, so neglect of magical techniques is due as well to objective causes. In relation to purely material factors, it has been demonstrated that every milieu resists imitating the techniques of another social or ethnic group. Surely this resistance was much stronger in the realm of magical techniques. Here were all the taboos and prohibitions, the immense strength of magical conservatism. Then too, whereas material techniques are relatively distinct and independent of one another, magical techniques are rapidly elaborated into a rigid system. Everything is of a piece, everything is dependent upon everything else, consequently nothing can be meddled with, nothing modified without threat to the whole structure of beliefs and activities. Hence the weak expanse of power and their strong power of defense against alien magical techniques. So this is kind of interesting. It seems so yeah, talking about how different groups, they might have their own particular sorts of magic, and then one group might favor their sort of magic over another sort of magic. I think this sort of theme, we were talking about like the cyberpunk genre. You could find it all over. Like there's, for example, looking at, like I brought up that Shadowrun video game, but many other video games in a similar genre. Like you have different classes of characters, and then they might use like a different type of magic, so to speak. Like you might have the technologist class who their magic is, using computers and hacking. And then another class, their source of magic is actually calling up some spirit of some kind. So it's some kind of shamanism, sort of very ancient, ritualistic looking, what a lot of people would think of as magic traditionally. And then you might, have the Asian, like kung fu, chi energy type stuff that somebody might say, oh, that's magic because you can't, Do you have like a chi energy reader such that you could concentrate your chi energy and we could measure it? Oh no, then it's superstition, right? Then that might be yet another sense of a type of magic that a different group may have. And yeah, so maybe different social and ethnic groups, they all might have a sort of magical art of some kind that they special in, and people might be biased, or maybe biased isn't the best word, but they might do their own stuff to the exclusion of doing other stuff. So someone might be like a voodoo practitioner, and then they believe that if they do some weird Celtic wizardry thing, it might ruin their voodoo, because then the entities or whatever that they call upon to do the voodoo will be jealous and displeased because they're giving their attention or their energy to something else. I don't know exactly how people think about this stuff, but if we have a real wizard on the stream, you could tell us about that. Okay, a couple of comments. Okay, so I asked King Herring what he meant by mental. So if you're saying the universe is mental, what does that mean? He says that consciousness is the basis of reality, not the physical world. And if Spinoza is correct, rocks are conscious too. Okay, so maybe that's like a kind of pan-psychism. So consciousness, like, I believe consciousness exists. I don't believe consciousness is an illusion. Like, I think Sam Harris and some other people have tried to put forth that idea. Magical technique intersects strongly with social cohesion technique, says Dion. Okay, I'll add that of a list of things to look at. Social cohesion technique. I could guess what that means, but I haven't looked at that term specifically. And King Herring says, Pan-psychism is kind of base, but you will get excommunicated, maybe. Yeah, I mean, like, I do not believe in Pan-psychism. I'm pretty, I try to go by the traditional Christian teaching, which I think the Orthodox have, right? So that would be, there's people, and people are made of both spirit and body, and they're different from rocks and animals. Not to say that rocks and animals and stuff don't have a spiritual aspect of them, but it's going to be different from people. So, but it's interesting to see, like, when we're talking about like the metaverse and this sort of thing, we could see that it all goes back. We keep on reconnecting with ancient ideas and controversies that people might have had. You all have probably heard, for example, people talking about Plato ideas, like Plato's cave, allegory of the cave. So this is like freshman level philosophy. My mind is blown. Not to say that that's even a bad thing, to have a freshman philosophy moment. Let's all have a freshman philosophy moment. Bro, dude, what if the world we're seeing is just a shadow show, and we're like in a cave, and then there's this outside world, this fire behind us, but we're all trapped in a cave looking at the wall? Whoa. So these ideas have been around for a long time, and like a modern manifestation of this might be, maybe like a lot of times what we're doing on the internet now, we're kind of watching our own digital shadow show. Like everyone's staring at their screens, looking at this stuff, but then there's something above and beyond. Like this tastes good, this feels good. I see these things on my screen. There's something beyond that. I don't think that that's a wrong or a stupid idea or observation. All right, Dion says, what I meant was that religion and spirituality are deeply tied in the morality and behavioral norms. The ingredients of a cohesive group capable of extensive cooperation. Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of reading a point into what you're saying, but I think there is this there is a general point to be made that what people believe about and consider to be real, there's real consequences for an idea that somebody might have and how they might act in the world. Like I think it was you, Dion, who brought up the example of that Westworld show. So I haven't seen this personally, but I know about the premise of the story, where it's people do bad things to robots. So this, if you have like a assumption about like robots and how people and stuff work, then you might act in a way which might be otherwise very bad if you're wrong about robots. Like, let's say that you truly have the belief that like computers are conscious in some sense, and that like if you uninstall the operating system or something, it brings your computer great pain. Now, I don't believe any of those things, but supposedly somebody actually did have this sort of idea. Then what would that mean? Oh, King Harry says he brought up Westworld. Okay, so we will correct the record. It was King Harry who brought up the Westworld example. Yeah, so Westworld is like an interesting expression of this idea of, if people consider the world to be in a particular way or not a particular way, how might that change what counts as a socially acceptable behavior? I think even like with first person video games, for instance, like I don't think most people would consider it like if you found out someone played first person video games, it wouldn't be like, I don't want anything to do with this person. It wouldn't be that bad. But like if somebody says that their favorite type of game is first person video games, then maybe that's one step of, ooh, are they violent, above like if you said, I just like to play these puzzle games where I connect pipes and build circuits to make a thing work, right? Like one of those sorts of games has a level where even if it's simulated, even if it's you don't believe you're actually killing people or something, that there are reasons why parents or whoever might prefer that their kid play, advanced industrial plumber simulator as opposed to, Call of Duty or something. Likewise, too, you could also look and say, oh yeah, people who play games but don't play first-person games, maybe they're like slow thinking, slow reflex cowards that are afraid to answer the call to duty and to go out and to actually experience losing a game and learn how to rise up and improve in a game. Maybe somebody, they play just like to play puzzle games by themselves because they're a coward and they don't want to engage people and potentially lose and take risks, right? So that's another way to look at various games and what you believe to be true of what actually exists and stuff in games. Okay, let us get back here. Oh yeah, so just with respect to games, and I'll bring this back to the mental and spiritual conversation topic that we just had, like, then you could say even when you're playing the game, even if your body isn't physically like adjusting pipes or flying a spaceship or whatever it is that you're doing in a video game, you could talk about how there is a kind of action of your mind in order to play the game. So obviously if you're doing something like playing a puzzle game or figuring out a computer programming problem, we count that as work in a lot of the case, because maybe you have to like run through a bunch of different solutions, figure out stuff in your head. Like it actually takes effort to do that. That's why yeah, at the end of the day, you might not want to play one of these games because you might be like, that sounds too hard. I actually just want to sleep. Um, Likewise, if you're playing a, like a first-person shooter game, I mean, if anybody has played any kind of competitive game, I'm sure you've seen people get angry because they lose, or feel excited because they win, something like that. Okay, let's actually take a moment. We'll tie this into the preview image for this stream, because I think it's I would like to explain how that's relevant. So I titled this stream, "Do you feel passionate about becoming a wizard?" So, and then I use this image of the 7 meme sins. So you could think about it like, what sort of things, if you're like a technology, computer, metaverse wizard, what is it that you're able to do? So we'll just use like one single example. Let's just say, you could control images. You could create whatever video, you could make whatever images you want. All right. You have this power to do this in the digital world, or even the metaverse, the digital world stretching into the non-digital world. Now, okay, you're a wizard, Harry. Now, what is it that you're able to do? Well, here's some examples of stuff you could do, right? You could be this guy, and you could create all the things that you would like to be able to do, like in digital form. And maybe you could sell this to other people that are interested in the same things and thereby get a lot of money, right? You could touch up photos and, show how strong, how smart, how accomplished you are. You could elevate your status in the world by, making a bulletproof LinkedIn profile. You could make other people jealous of your lifestyle, of what you had. So maybe somebody posts some nice vacation photos, and it's like, oh, they're trying to make me feel bad because they had a nice cruise with their family, and so on and so forth. So you use your wizardry, and you create this fantasy that, like, oh yeah, you went on a 1 week vacation. Well, look, I went on a 2 week vacation, and here are all the nice things I had. You could use the digital technology in order to do that. Yeah, of course, you could have your Grub hubs and stuff on demand. Summon all the foods you could consume. Greed, I think the crypto, the money, all that sort of stuff is related to that, especially in the areas of like fintech, financial technology. If you're a like wizard and you could master that system, then you press button and it's like, whoa, every trade on this stock trading app, I get a little cut. And if you have millions and millions of transactions going on constantly, then that's a money printer for you. You get all this money. Wrath, yeah, we'll use the example of like you're a Discord moderator. You have a position of power. Somebody bothers you on the internet. Well, what if you had the power, the ability to just delete them off the server? Like, you may be mad. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ban you. I'm going to delete you. Now, in real life, you aren't able to do that. If you have a coworker or something you don't get along with, you can't just mute them. You can't just destroy them. But as an internet wizard, you might be able to act on your passion of wrath and do that. And then lastly, sloth. So this face is also known as the doomer meme, right? So maybe you just want to say how stuff sucks and then not do anything about it. So just embrace the fact that a lot of stuff is difficult and maybe there's a lot of work that could be done, but if you just say it's so bad, why even try? Why even fight, right? You give into sloth, then like that is one criticism of for example, I've received that criticism. People might say, you might point out or show how all this stuff works in the world, but what are you doing about it? So a valid thing to think about, like, am I just being lazy? Am I not doing stuff? But if you're being an internet wizard, right, it might just be like, I just sit here, I have all the power, I could press all the buttons, but I'm just gonna watch the world burn. That might be another temptation for a wizard. Okay, King Herring has a funny comment. He says Xa will use wizardry to delete all anti-China messages. Yeah. So when somebody owns or has control over the space, then suddenly they might have the ability to control, to censor, to monitor, to do all sorts of things, like in their little digital realm that they control, that they wouldn't normally in real life. So going back to Jacques Ellul's text here, then yeah, you could see how in many ways the people who want to control or they want to extend the technological society, in many ways you could just see how basically like they want to be wizards. They want to be able to type the magic command, wave the wand, press the button, and then impose their will based on one of these passions on other people. So we could even use YouTube as an example, right? You go on YouTube, and then YouTube as a platform, we've given ample criticisms of YouTube. One of the things that YouTube could do is say, look, we have this vector by which like you could become instantly famous. We could even just like study YouTube right here, right now. Like, okay, I went on YouTube Explorer. I'm not logged in or anything, and then the top videos here. This Sip and Feast channel is Creator on the Rise. Now, I haven't watched this channel. I don't have anything to say about its specific content, but you could see like what sort of passion does this sort of content refer to. You're scrolling on YouTube and then it's like, let's make people hungry, right? So yes, let's control people through their gluttony, wizard. So make this sort of channel, you brilliant wizard, and you will be able to become YouTube famous for that. And this, of course, is not to say that you shouldn't make a cooking channel or anything. But another question to ask is, of all the people who have cooking videos on YouTube, all the people that have like good quality content that teaches you how to do useful stuff, of all the videos, why is this channel a Creator on the Rise? I think it's a valid question to ask, and if anybody's interested in doing that detective work, then they could do that. All right, so we got a bunch of trending stuff. Gaming has officially been mainstreamed. You could play these.
Peggy 16.
Whoa, I didn't mean to click that. But a lot of fantasy genre type stuff is popular. Shooter games, so things you aren't allowed to do online or aren't allowed to do in real life, but in a game, people will do. Yeah, anyway, so the point here to show is, though, that as a platform, if let's say you're working for YouTube or one of these big companies, then you have the wizard buttons where you could give any one person or one party a huge boost on your platform relative to other people. Like here, it was mentioned on this stream just today that maybe one thing YouTube doesn't do is just show like, I'm not going to come up on the main pages. Who are the people that are streaming that are giving you free college education or something? This sort of stuff like I'm doing right now, right? I don't think that it's going to be featured on YouTube anytime soon, but I don't think that there's a technical reason why it couldn't be. I mean, they could put whatever they want to put on their homepage, but they don't. So that is to say, there are wizards in control of certain ways, and with the current web we have, we could call it Web 2.0, as opposed to like Web 3.0, Internet of Things, all of that. On Web 2.0, there's limits to how much they could raise you. You could say you're the most popular person on YouTube. You're the top of this and that chart, right? But this doesn't leak out into the real world immediately. Now, what are some examples of some changes that we might see? Like, what if YouTube is actually able to pay its creators more or less directly? Like Google literally is funding and paying people to make certain sorts of content. You could see actually that's the model that a lot of people have taken on. So one question to ask, and you all could give me your thoughts on this, is YouTube trying to become more like Netflix or Amazon Originals? I don't know what the Amazon is called. But the idea here is like, rather than just have people, streams like this where people make videos and talk about whatever, is YouTube trying to go for this thing where they are sponsoring and encouraging their own specific sort of angle on stuff and directly promoting and saying, you there, you're officially famous. You there, you're officially a show that people should watch. Is YouTube moving in that direction? I've heard some people say that that's the case. Yeah, so King Herring makes a comment, says, decentralized interwebs will change a lot, but it's not nearly there yet. Maybe mainstream by 2030. Yeah, I think so. One of the reasons now, somebody might ask me, like, why are you even doing streams? It seems like YouTube is a platform that they have all this censorship and all this sort of stuff going on. Maybe it's not even a good place to start even trying to do something. My own personal view about it is like stuff like YouTube, the metaverse, these big platforms. I mean, like them or not, they are going to be there. So if you do learn how to use them and navigate them and like basically learn how to use them well, then I think they could be useful to you, and you won't have to spend a lot of time doing the technical setup and all these things that might go into building like some of these other sites like PeerTube or Odyssey or BitChute or some of these other sites. Oh, okay. Yeah, King Heron says something funny here. And maybe next is YouTube Friends or some shiz. YouTube is Google's social network now. They added shorts and post updates. Yeah, basically, I think this is a good observation. And even when I'm describing my own approach here, I would say it's actually like I've kind of embraced that approach in a way, and that I'm saying like, okay, these are some examples of some channels that I would consider myself like friendly to. I'm following their pages. In a similar way, you might follow a page on Facebook, and then if I had contact with another person who makes YouTube videos, then that's saying like we're kind of like YouTube friends in a way. So is YouTube kind of becoming like Facebook? Once they have their own internal email type of messaging thing, which they kind of already do through comments, then I suppose that would be one milestone in completing that transition. All right, let's continue with Jacques Ellul a little bit. Let's see. Then too, whereas material techniques are relatively distinct and independent of one another, magical techniques are rapidly elaborated into a rigid system. Everything is of a piece, everything is dependent upon everything else. Consequently, nothing can be meddled with, nothing modified without a threat to the whole structure of beliefs and activities. Hence their weak, expansive power and their strong power of defense against alien magical techniques. All right, let's bring this into geopolitics. That sounds like a fun way to conclude this stream, and then also to bring up some topics where we're talking about the direction that the internet's going into. So I think it would be fair to say that the internet now, it's not unified. There's different regions of the world, and they have their own rules, their own required logins, and so on and so forth. So I'll just name a few spheres. So of course there's like the English speaking internet, and this will include YouTube, and our official narrative is stored on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is our if you want to know about anything and sort of what is normal, polite society's view on it, then Wikipedia is there for you. And you could go to Wikipedia and learn how to be a good, educated person. So that's how it is in the West. Now, there's other countries in the world, other nations. You might have heard about in China, like their Google equivalent is this website called Baidu. So, actually, I'm not sure. Is Google blocked in China? I'm not sure if Google is still blocked in China. Okay, here we go. So we have from CNBC. They have this statement here. Google, Facebook, and Twitter are all blocked in China due to the country's Great Firewall. They can usually only be accessed via virtual private networks or VPNs. The Tuber browser has now disappeared from app stores, and its website no longer works. So that Tuber browser was probably like some easy to install way in which people in China might try to access these US sites. Anyways, going back to the point though that I was making is we can see that the internet is already not unified. It's not like researchers from all around the world are exchanging information so that we could build the best technology using science together. And look, Chinese, Indian, American, they're all collaborating in these various ways. Like that might happen in some places, but it's not on Facebook that's happening. So like I'm using China as an example, and we could talk about a couple other places. These 3 sites that they have blocked. So instead of Google, then in China they'll have this Baidu site. So you could see that the layout of this site is quite similar to Google. And I'll search a topic. I'll search the Chinese word for economic development. Search 经济发展. And I search 经济发展, economic development. Then you're gonna get now their version of Wikipedia. Not quite as they don't market themselves as like the free encyclopedia like Wikipedia does, but it's the same idea where you could look up any number of topics. Like I think like actually the word for encyclopedia in Chinese is like bai ke. Bai is like 100, and I think ke could be called like maybe close to Jacques Ellul's sense of technique, something like that. So you could have like 100 or 1,000, whatever big number you want to insert. But the site then, you could go through and you could read about all the number of topics you want approved, right? King Herring, please give me my social credit back. I'm saying good things about about these Chinese websites. Please don't deduct points. All right, so then what is their equivalent of Facebook and Twitter? I don't know if this site is still popular in China. China's actually been changing really fast, but there was this site called Zhen. So we could all learn to read a little bit of Chinese today. It'll be funny. This character here, it means person, Zhen. So it's like the feet of a person walking. And then when you put it together, people, Zhen, then what does that mean? It's like a place for people. So this site is like a Chinese equivalent of Facebook. Zhen Wang. everybody's network is how they translate it. And do they have like a screenshot of this? We could search it. Take a look. And it'll probably look quite similar to Facebook. Okay, so here's like a screenshot we have of this website. Like, oh no, it's like one of these mobile sites. Okay, so here you can see that they have like a news feed. You know, oh, there's even some people posting some Chinese memes. Then you have the side navigation with some various different functions of the site, and then they probably have some kind of message service associated with it. Now, as an American, like if I go to this Renren site, let's just say I want to experience the Chinese internet. Can I do that? So first, obviously, if you aren't familiar with Chinese or don't speak Chinese, then that could be a barrier. But oftentimes, you know, these websites, they are also translated into English. But I want to go to like a registration page. This site appears slower. Okay, here it goes. So it took a little bit of time to load, probably because the server is all the way in China, so it's not like being served from a California server to a California server. So if I were to want to sign up for this sort of service, then they might region lock it where I actually need to have a Chinese phone number or something like that. So this is asking for my username and password, or I could just get their QR code. Maybe this site's too slow. I was just trying to get to quickly get to like a registration page. Maybe the Baidu will be faster. Yeah. So we want to 注册. We want to register. Anyway, so while this loads, so we said China, they got like a Facebook equivalent, a Google equivalent, a kind of Wikipedia equivalent, and then even in the West, I think a lot of people have heard of this site, Weibo. 新浪微博. And that will be kind of their Twitter equivalent in many ways. So this sort of service they would call a microblogging website. Yeah, okay, so here now finally the Baidu site loaded. So if I wanted to make a site in Baidu, then I need to actually have a Chinese phone number, 手机号. And if I don't have that, which will of course be local to China, then I won't be able to register. So are there ways around to do that? Yeah, of course, if you have a friend in China, you could ask them to, buy a phone that has a phone number and so on and so forth. So there are ways in which you could get an account to use like a Baidu account and stuff, but by default you could clearly see that in these various different internet worlds that they're restricting access of Westerners and other people. And I'm not even blaming China for doing this, because you could see how let's suppose that it was very easy for Westerners or English first language speakers to make accounts and to go into the Chinese internet, right? I mean, you'll have people who's like, oh, Tiananmen Square, blah, 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 blah. There would probably just be a lot of content that they wouldn't care to have spread. And you would also get powerful organizations like NGO with the full-time team specialized in people spreading a certain sort of information, that's pretty hard to fight against. So if by just banning this whole large class of like Westerners, you solve the problem of not having as much of a large amount of, you could call it spam or undesirable messages, whatever, then it's a very efficient policy. And then the people that actually do really need to have that account or something, as I was saying, if you have a friend in China who bought a phone or did all these things, you use a VPN, then there are ways to use these sites and these services if you truly needed to or wanted to, and were willing to put forth some time and effort to do so. You could use them. All right. So I think we could start to close up for today. I started to talk about the Chinese internet because King Herring brought up this comment. Decentralized interwebs will change a lot. And yeah, we could already see how the nature of the internet communications now, we have a lot of these very large platforms. And as I've been talking about with respect to all this wizardry and magic stuff, when you have stuff centralized on some big system that's delicately laid out in a particular way, then you have in the hands of certain people that are elevated to certain positions the power in which, you ban someone from YouTube. Now, if somebody, their livelihood depends on YouTube or something, that's how they make the majority of their money, then to ban someone from YouTube or something, I mean, that's a very major hit to do to somebody. And you could contrast the speed of something like that versus, let's say that there's a store owner in your city and, the mayor or the neighbor or whoever really doesn't like their politics, to get somebody kicked out of a city when they have physical stuff sitting in their like store and property. You can't actually just say like go and move immediately, because to actually close out a store to move all your stuff, like that takes a lot of work. That's why people literally pay for movers, because it's hard to move stuff. That's why we have a shortage of truck drivers, because you can't just insta-ban. You can't be a wizard. But on the other hand, you talk about Etsy or something. Etsy, it's this popular site where people, they do online stores. Now, from a wizard perspective, it's much easier to delete someone's store as a wizard if they're a purely online business. Where if you truly try to you really are angry at the Burger King next door, it might be months and months before you are actually able to defeat the Burger King next door. Even if let's say they fail some health inspection or something, then there's probably a process by which they have to kind of close the dining room, and so on and so forth. It might be very gradual, and you might have a lot of interested parties where they wouldn't want them to terminate the employment of employees that might really be relying on that business to survive, basically. So if you cut off that money, then there might be unemployment payments and all sorts of stuff. So by being in what one might call a messier system, that's actually one of the ways in which you protect yourself against wizards. Now, on the other hand, you get to a site like Etsy or YouTube, or you do all your transactions through PayPal or whatever, then suddenly you're extremely vulnerable, because there's this single point of failure. I think that might be one. The single point of failure. I think that's one phrase people might use with cybersecurity and all that. Yeah. So you could talk about this in technical terms, like actual machines, but then you could also talk about it in terms of a more social or business arrangement. And platforms and stuff like that, you get everything centralized such that you have a single point of failure. Well, then all a wizard has to do is shoot a lightning bolt at that one point, and they have great power over you. Cool. Anyways, thanks everybody who joined in today. I hope this stream was interesting, and I thank you for your comments, even the comments that people might consider like pushback, like saying, "Oh, you said good things about this YouTuber, but I think they're a shill or whatever." Well, then that's interesting. Let's hear about why that's the case, and we could also say, yeah, I mean that's a valid criticism, even if it is true that, say, they're sponsored by Coca-Cola or something. That doesn't also negate all the correct and true and useful information that they point out. And I think that's also one aspect that we could emphasize of OSINT, right? So when we're doing a kind of open source intelligence approach, one thing that we're doing is we're hearing what people actually have to say for themselves, to investigate Coca-Cola or something. It doesn't matter if you say, oh, Coca-Cola is just about making money. Okay, well, suppose that is true. That doesn't matter if you're trying to learn about Coca-Cola. You could still hear them tell you about how it is that they go about doing that, or how they brand themselves, how they represent themselves, and so on. So it doesn't even matter if certain accusations against someone are true. You just hear what they have to say for themselves, and then you could do what you think is fit with that information. All right, so I'm gonna close up the stream. Thanks everyone for joining, and I will also update the show notes and try to give advance notice for when the next stream is. It won't be in the upcoming weekend, probably be Monday at the earliest, but I'll see what I could do. Thanks everyone.